welcome to The Executive Appeal, a show that convenes the world's most powerful and successful leaders to share mentoring and career advancement advice to help you successfully transition into senior level executive positions. I'm your host, Alex Tremble, award-winning speaker, author, and leadership expert with over a decade of experience coaching and advising some of our nation's most senior level government leaders. So if you're ready to reach your goals, let's get started. Welcome, ambitious leaders, to another power-packed episode of The Executive Appeal. I am your host, Alex Tremble, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. This podcast goes further, way past those ordinary, it's going to take you some hard work to get to where you want to be. That BS, sorry, I think I can say it because I am the host. It takes us past all that, the nonsense to what truly will help you get to those executive level positions and senior executive level positions. Now, before we dive into today's interview, I have to share some exciting news. Again, The Executive Appeal is now one of the top 5% most popular shows in the world. And let me say and be clear with this didn't happen by accident. It was you who made this happen, and it will be you who determines the continued success of this show. So here's my call to action for all of our amazing listeners. If you enjoy the content that we bring to you, each and every month, we ask for your support. Please click the like button. Please share your thoughts and your questions in the comment section. And most importantly, make sure you share the episode with at least 2 friends or colleagues today. Your engagement and enthusiasm keeps this community thriving, and we couldn't be more grateful. And with no further ado, let me say today is a beautiful and amazing day. See, today we have with us the always amazing Miss Simone Ross, and she has all the titles. But I'm going to stick to just a few of them today because this woman is just amazing. See, Simone is the CEO of the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce and the executive director of the Colorado Women's Chamber Foundation, where she actively works to advise women in business and make Colorado the top state for women in business. She is also the founder of Simone D Ross LLC, a consulting firm that specializes in change management, and the CEO of SDR Events. And again, I told you she's doing everything. The founder and CEO of Youth United University, an inclusive leadership education program for middle school students. How are you doing today, Miss Simone?
Woo, well, you said all that, and I should say tired, but I'm inspired today. I'm with you. Congratulations on all the success with your podcast. And I am honored and humbled to even be invited to share a microphone with you. So I am feeling great.
Well, again, I am humbled to be here with you. We're both being super humbled today. Hashtag blessed, hashtag doubly blessed. I want to jump into this and talk about some cool news. There's someone I know who just did like a TEDx talk. Do you know of anyone? You know of her?
I did. I think Black women are safer working from home. And so I took that to the TEDx stage. And it was well timed. I did my TED talk the first part of November. And then again, there have been points after points, hashtag Dr. Claudine Gay, Harvard, where it further hammers in the fact that maybe Black women are safer working from home.
I know that everyone, so I shared this with my network. I really appreciated the write-up that you had for it as well. Would you mind? I know there's a video out there, people who watch, and I know there's an article for them to read. Would you mind just sharing some of those key points that you want to make as you're making that case?
Absolutely. Well, so I always like to have database discussion, right? And so when you look as of 2023, when we concluded that year based on the Lean In and McKinsey report, 1 in 4 C-suite positions are given to women. If you drill down a little bit more and disaggregate that data, 1 in 16 C-suite positions belong to a woman of color. So that lets us know that there is a systemic issue, right? In that the system of corporate infrastructure perhaps doesn't view Black women and women as credible leaders. And so that's not a woman problem. There is nothing wrong with me as a Black woman or any of the brilliant, amazing Black women. That means that we've got a systemic issue that we've really got to interrogate, be discerning about, and ask questions about. And so in my TED Talk, I shared that Black women have the highest participation rate in the labor force. We have almost fully rebounded post pandemic when, in 2020, 2.4 million women left the workforce. And of those, Black women were disproportionately impacted. But now, when we look, as of June 23, Black women have fully rebounded in their participation, yet we still aren't being promoted. We still don't have that upward mobility. And just as of a few weeks ago in December, we saw yet another Black woman who had successfully ascended the corporate ladder. We saw her publicly job lynched for something that white men are allowed to do and essentially fail forward throughout their career. This Black woman was job lynched, accused of all types of egregious things that she didn't do. It's not an issue with her. You've got to take this up with the board that gave her doctoral degree. Like, what are we talking about? And so my assertion that Black women are safer working from home is really rooted in the microaggressions, the statistics, the inequitable access to opportunity, and the overall workplace culture that we have to combat. And ultimately, many of us have chosen ourselves.
So,
I love the so. You're like, yeah.
well, so I just I did a training a couple weeks ago now, and we were talking about some of this. We were talking about the unconscious and conscious bias, and we talked about the how it affects everyone. Everyone has a bias. Everyone has unconscious and conscious bias, and biases aren't wrong. Biases are biases. There are some that hurt people and harm people, so you need to be aware of those. And how do you then address those? And we were talking about this conversation, and the women who were in the room, because it was actually all women in this session, I asked them like, what are your thoughts? What are your reactions to this? And they all kind of felt down, because they were like, I just feel tired. I feel tired of always having to push past, tired always having to, quote unquote, be strong. So I work and do a lot of executive coaching for a lot of women and men, but I'd love to hear, like, if it's safer in the work, if it's safer at home, and you see this trend of companies pushing people back to the workforce, what do you recommend women do in those situations?
Yeah, and it's twofold, right? We're at this weird space of we are asking for more workplace flexibility for a variety of reasons, right? One of those big reasons for women of color statistically is the psychological safety that remote work brings us, because you're able to kind of create essentially a wall or a barrier between the microaggressions you get day in at work. And that's just a protective mechanism. And so I think as we are having conversations around getting people back into the office, we also have to have a twofold conversation around the very real aspect of leadership, office design, and create a culture where people are able to be safe. I, in my TED Talk, introduced a framework. It's called the Authentic Agreements of Leadership Engagement, which is really centered around know thyself, see thyself, and be thyself, where all leaders, I'm encouraging them to kind of break down that veneer. And once they do that deep internal intrinsic work, I should say, then they're able to show up better for others because they're able to really appreciate the diversity that others bring. So I think there's a leadership piece, especially when we look at the emerging domestic market. America is browning. I know, me being from Colorado, I'm actually the first Black woman to ever lead my organization. I'm constantly having conversations around the browning of America. And it's just becoming a leadership imperative that we get a little bit more culturally competent. And so that we retrain our brain with those biases, where if you see somebody that's different, you don't hit them with the automatic microaggression of, where are you from?
Yeah.
Oh, you're so articulate. And if one more person asks me about my hair care, my hair care regimen, just, but that takes education, right?
Yeah.
And so you've got to educate yourself, and everyone at corporate systems need to do that. I think companies need to be a little bit more intentional around representation in their interview panels, on their boards of directors, and their C-suites, and within leadership. That's something that's fairly easy to do. You can attract talent, diverse talent, but then they have to do the work internally to retain that talent, because then you see attrition and you see the things we're talking about. But there's opportunities there to really do some diagnostic work internally as an organization. I'm working with a client now where I'm saying, oh, I know you've gotten an EEO claim. I know you do. I can just look at you and tell you got one. Let's pull it up. Let's look at this EEO claim and let's find where there are some trends, and let's start fixing this. And so companies got to do that. You've got to make that investment, because the times they are changing, and business institutions have to be ready for that change and be committed to it. And so, you can ask people to come back to work. The reality is that nobody wants to be in the office 5 days a week. And so we have to retrain to understand the benefits of workplace flexibility, whether you're telling me about your precious 6-month-old, whether that's giving you the flexibility to be more of a hands-on dad, and understanding that caregiving isn't just the role of the woman. That's big. And so we need to also tell those stories and kind of parent out loud. And as we're comfortable and as we create that safety, live our identities out loud. And I think we'll see some seismic shifts.
You've said so much. One of the first pieces I want to chat about is the reality that I talk out both sides of my mouth. I always, generally back in the day, you wouldn't want to be someone who talks out both sides of your mouth, basically like you're lying. But I tell people I do, because when I'm consulting for organizations, I am consistently encouraging and telling them, develop leaders that care, develop programs that are focused, are people centered, right? You want to build that engagement. You want to, help your staff and employees know that, hey, look, we are a safe place. We want you to be thriving wherever you may be. We're going to invest in you. And so all those things I definitely am consistently talking about when I'm working with organizations. On the other side, when I'm talking to individuals, when I'm coaching and speaking at events, people ask me about this stuff. I'm like, look, the reality is, yes, there are some magnificent, wonderful, beautiful, amazing leaders that many of them we've had on this podcast. And there are leaders that don't care as much. There are organizations that aren't focused on these things. And so just as it would be wonderful to be working for a leader who cared and a company who cared, many people don't. So how do you build that internal resilience so you can, whether and I'm not saying that you just need to be sitting there and taking shots, because I'm never that guy. But what I am saying, like, that internal resilience and understanding that you are worth something, you do matter, who you are matters. And so if you're in a space where they aren't showing respect to you, when they aren't focused on you and developing you and investing in you and so on and so forth, then you are worth enough to go somewhere else. You shouldn't just sit there and say, well, the organization should be treating me right. Maybe I'll just wait around and maybe they'll get it. Like, you got to be willing to step. Otherwise, I always tell people too, and this is not always popular, but sometimes sometimes leaving is the best way to help an organization, because if it hurts them in their pocket, hurts them in their retention, they'll say, oh my God, this is actually a problem. Maybe we got to address this. And the last thing I'll say on this is, you talked about acquisition. I'll tell you, some of my best friends in regards to clients are people in the acquisitions field, because they're so focused on finding great talent, but they also know their job is harder if you can't retain the talent. Like, it doesn't matter if you can bring it in. If the company can't keep the talent, that means that they got to be working even overtime to find more people to fill that pipeline.
Oh, you have just said a whole word. And so I think that there's a few things, right? Because as you said, I kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth too, right? It's twofold. We are actively, us change makers, all the people that are listening to the podcast right now, we are actively trying to catalyze systemic change in whatever system we're working in, right? And so you can affect with a system towards change. That's slow, right? Systems are slow to change, but it doesn't mean you stop doing it. And at the point that you need to take a breath, it's a marathon. The point you need to take a rest, run to the side, get your water, and then you gear up for the next, the next couple miles of this marathon. I think the other piece, though, for you to really care for yourself as a leader, I think it comes down to building community, um, personal investment, diagnosing your superpower, and creating a personal strategy and mission statement. Because that's the only thing that's going to keep you going, right? And so when I say building a community, I'm talking about, okay, if you're not feeling valued at work, and trust me, I was there. I worked in the private sector for nearly 2 decades. If you're not feeling valued at work, you got to get that hit, right? Because that's going to protect yourself. You need that confidence. You need that swagger. Take your brilliance into community. Don't get so beaten down by what's happening to you day to day. Take that into community. Boards of directors, nonprofit boards of directors, Black-led startups, they need your expertise so desperately, whether it's governance and nominating, whether it's finance, whether it's programmatic things. Take that energy and pour it back into community, because it's going to give you that confidence boost, and it's going to help you build a network potentially to chart your next move. And so it's hard. I get it. If you're in kind of that place where you're like, I'm not feeling valued, I'm not feeling safe, those microaggressions are starting to really compound. I get it. I've been there. But take time and get your expertise out into community, because we need you as we're building our institutions, especially Black institutions. We need your expertise. Personal investment. Is there an opportunity to upskill? Is there an opportunity to reskill? Is there an opportunity to join a professional or leadership development program? Is there an opportunity to be able to do that just to keep your brain sharp, to sharpen your toolkit, to get something new? That's going to be an excellent opportunity. And then define your superpower. My superpower is operationalizing complex plans and strategies. Hone in on that superpower and start talking about yourself differently. And even internally at your organization, start talking about yourself in terms of your superpower, right? You say, hey, I'm Simone.
Yes.
I am an outstanding business operator. I know my title is this, but I am a gifted operator that can take complex things, pare them down so we all understand them, get confident and fall in love with your superpower, and then create your strategy. And with that strategy, start building out your personal board of directors. Who's on your accountability team that's going to say, Alex, you said that you want to be the executive coach for Fortune 50 executive leaders. How are we working on that plan? What do I need to do to help get you there? Get that get your personal board of directors, create that strategic plan, vision it out, meditate on it, and manifest it, and invest in yourself, because corporate trauma is real. My name is Simone. I am a recovering healthcare executive. The only way I'm in recovery is because you sometimes have to unpack some of that psychological damage and trauma that you receive day to day. It's not okay, but you've got to make that investment in yourself, just to really become more resilient and get your grip back.
You know, when you talk everything, yes to everything, and you talked about, speaking it out loud, who you are, not your job title, who you are, what you bring, what you're gifted in. That is so important. And I think everyone who's listening, you need to be doing this exercise yourself. You got to know who you are, right? Who are you, and who do you want to be if you're not that person just yet? And you got to speak it into existence, and not only because it's great for affirmations, it's great for yourself and for your own internal clarity, but also for everyone else. I mean, by doing this, you are educating everyone around you and how you want to be talked to, how you want to be worked with, what opportunities you're interested in. This is literally educating people. And then you talked about that professional development. Again, from a psychological standpoint, again, my master's in IO psychology, undergrad psych and soc, and so I tend to be pretty behavioral focused. And if you look at my book, Relationships That Work, I am pretty heavy on identifying the correct behaviors and just doing those. Sometimes you don't feel motivated, but yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. Um, and I recently just had this reflection for myself that I used to believe, I do believe that we are a composite of the experiences that we've had. Like everything we do
Mhm.
kind of feeds into us, changes our mindset, our behaviors, our actions, our interests, and so on and so forth. And that kind of creates who we are moving forward. I do believe this. But two things I think we can add to the equation. First is knowing that we are a composite of the experiences that we have. We can also be very intentional about creating new experiences for us to grow. If you know you want to grow in a particular area, if you know you want to be challenged, you know you need to gain some more willpower, find opportunities to develop those
Absolutely.
things and have the different experiences. First. Second is it's interesting how just knowing who you are and naming it can actually change your behaviors.
Oh, absolutely.
I am the top executive coach for top 50, top Fortune 50 organizations. Well, if that's the case, then what behaviors and what do I need to be doing to be in line with that? And then now that shifts your behavior. So those are two really important things. So thank you for sitting those on the table as well.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting exercise to even pare that down, right? The typical question is, "Hey, what's your name? What do you do?" And it's actually it makes for unique relationship building. I kind of tried on saying, "Well, I'm a driver of systemic transformational change towards workforce economic equity. What do you do?" And the guy said, "Well, I was just going to tell you I'm the
Ooh.
CEO of a premier credit union." But wait, what is that? What do you do? I said, "No, no, no. I'm a driver
Yeah.
of systemic transformational change towards workforce economic equity." I said, "Now, I accomplished that in my role as the CEO of the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce, but
Mhm.
at my core,
Yeah.
wherever I go, whatever I do, I'm going to be working on systemic transformation to drive workforce economic equity." And he
Hmm.
said, "Whoa. So now let's talk about more things." And then imagine how that conversation shifts. And even imagine like how that makes you feel on the inside, where you're like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, I accomplish in some way, shape, or form this thing through my job title. But in reality, I'm really doing this and I really strive to accomplish this thing." And that's not let's not talk about what you do. Let's talk about who you are. And
Hmm.
that changes things, right?
Yeah.
It's I was talking to someone who'd outreached me just for a quick conversation. She said, "Well, where do you suggest leaders start?" And I said, "You know what? Write your obituary.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should start at the end. Um, and then figure out if you want your obituary to say these things high
Hmm.
level, then work backwards and start with the behaviors, right?
Hmm.
Seek the opportunities, seek the network, seek the organizations that will help you achieve what you want people to say at the end. And if you look at your obituary and you're like, "Well, I said that I wanted to, I don't know, be a driver of systemic transformational change towards workforce equity, but nothing that I've been doing these past 30 years is getting me there," then that's when you start being strategic.
Yeah. You've said so much, and and that's why you and I be rocking. So you know, when you talk about starting with the end in mind, that's it's almost the obvious thing you would do for an organization. What are the outcomes you want? Now, how do you plan backwards to
Right?
make sure you get those? But we don't always do that for ourselves as
Oh,
individuals. And so, one of the things I want to sit on the table is, okay, I may get myself in trouble for this, but you know, at 2024, I've told myself I want to speak more of my mind. So let's see if I get myself in trouble. So again, I coach a lot of executives, and the point is to help them not only be successful in their career because they're generally ambitious, they're high performing anyways. They're going to do that. But also, how do you do so while also having a personal life? How do you do so with also having time and energy for your family if that's important for you? How do you do so with also having personal goals? And what I was talking to someone recently about is they were like, "Hey, look, things are going rough at work right now." And I'm like, really? Really? Because one of my clients, I'm like, well, how are things going rough? Well, Alex, like I could be given another 25%. I know I could be given another 25%. And I said, well, hold up. Um, is your supervisor like upset with anything you're doing? And the person was like, no, they actually think I'm doing exceptionally well. I said, so that 25%, like, is there anything else in your life right now that you could be putting that 25% towards that's important to you? And they
Mhm.
were like, oh, well, I actually haven't been spending much time with my family. Well, let's do
Oh,
that. Right.
yeah.
This idea, this is the concept I still struggle with, is that at times we talk as organizations about, hey, we want to engage the staff so they're going to give over and beyond on their job, over and beyond. Again, I understand it in theory, but if someone is doing exceptionally well, why not encourage them to spend their extra energy
Mm,
on something else they're passionate about, whether it's drawing or painting or biking or traveling, because
yeah,
it's only going to make them more effective if they have some equilibrium inside and outside of work. That is my
absolutely.
belief.
Well, and that's why you're an amazing coach, right? And I think that more leaders need to probably invest in coaching from somebody like that because in corporate systems, you just have ingrained in you, um, drive, 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 drive. And it's like, to what end? It takes a conscious leader, it takes a mindful leader, it takes an experienced leader to be able to recognize that we're humans, right? That we are
Mhm.
not robots and that we have other things, other interests and lives outside of what you do day to day. And at the point that everything is firing on all cylinders, you're actually a way better representative, ambassador, and performer in my organization. But it takes a unique leader. Now, I will say that as we look at what millennials are accomplishing in the workforce, I'm a geriatric millennial, as they coined me. It's offensive. It is one of the most offensive. We're geriatric. Oh, it's an offensive term. I'm just using it because that's the nomenclature. I think that millennials are helping to drive that shift,
Mm.
and I think Gen Zers, as they are in the workforce, are teaching us a little bit more too to help us deprogram ourselves because we kind of came into that workforce with the you drive, you punch the
Mhm.
clock, you do this, you don't wear this, you don't say that. And I think
Yeah.
that we have that cognitive pliability to even kind of say, well, wait, let me hold on, let
Yeah.
me rethink about our values. And so I think that that is going to be a shift. I think that we're going to be the drivers. I love the boomers. They're great. They're retiring out. They don't possess that. Um, Gen X doesn't really possess that because they have some weird identity stuff going on. Millennials, we're making shifts. We're actually impacting the economy and from a GDP perspective more than anybody ever counted on us to. And we're learning from Gen Z, although they tend to frustrate us from time to time. We're flexing our leadership because we understand the value that they bring, and we're asking larger questions. And I love that you are encouraging that in your clients. And I wish that more leaders would do that work to say, but wait a minute, you're doing great. What do you want to learn? You said you were interested in learning more about policy and advocacy. Like, I don't want anything else from you, but I want you to be happy. What makes you happy?
Again, these are always, it's funny because they sound like simple questions, but they take reflection to get to the answer.
Oh,
What
yeah.
makes you happy? Oh, well, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I just been doing the next thing, right?
Right.
I want to ask you. You and I had spoken before, and you have a really cool model. And I'm not sure if I can ask it. Can I ask about the model you've been working on?
Go for it.
So,
Everything is on the table. I'm an open book today.
so you have been, again, just slaying across the field with your TEDx talk. And I want to put this on the table, and then you can talk about it if you like to. You have come up with a model that uh, meant to help organizations. Would you mind sharing something about it?
Yeah, so it is a framework. It's
Mhm.
my know thyself, see thyself, be thyself framework for authentic leadership engagement. And it's really intensive work around you, the individual. And again, this is a systems approach, right? And so I don't know if you've seen those systems diagrams where it has like you are in the center. Then you've got your interpersonal relationships and existence that's outside of that. And then you've got the larger, those are institutions and structures. And so it really is kind of taking that same modeling, but really paring it down to what leaders need to
Mhm.
be able to lead diverse groups towards equity. And so it's knowing yourself. But a piece of that, when you look at the framework, is what's informing your lens. Oh, that's different. Like, there's a lot
Mhm.
that's informing my lens. The
Mhm.
voice of my grandfather, the voice of
Mhm.
my mother telling me that I can't go swimming at the birthday party because she didn't want to deal with these curls, right? These are all
Yeah.
things that inform your lens. And then you have to really write that down. So it's like, well, where are you from? What are some of the, and we do this when I'm working with leaders, we do this. I say, well, what are some of the smells
Mm.
from where you are from? And they're like, why the heck are you asking me about the smells? I'm like, because these are things that you bring into the workplace.
Yeah.
If you have a trigger that's maple syrup, every breakfast meeting, you're going to feel something, period. And so literally we do a I am poem because I want leaders to really look at what are the things that make you you. What street did you grow on? What is some of your favorite sensory memories as a child? What are some of the things that you strive to do? What makes you cry? What makes you feel upset? Because then when you know yourself, then we can start saying, okay, well, there's some triggers there, truly. Like I'm sitting next to somebody that wears a perfume that's like my mom's, and I don't have fond memories of my mom's. Oh, crap.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
bias there. And my
Yeah.
reaction isn't to the person, it's to my trigger. And so when we do the intensive know thyself work, it's as a leader where you can say and be very open with yourself like, these are the things that make me tick. This is what
Mhm.
I'm committed to working on. This is the great value that I bring, and this is my my superpower. So that's where we start in the framework, and it really gets pared down at that level. And I'm seeing some transformative things with the groups that I'm working with. And then it's see thyself, but it's two different things, right? Because I can say I am the most competent transformational leader you'll ever meet. Well, if you talk to someone I'm leading and they're like, let me tell you about her. She is the most incompetent leader that can't move the dial on the thermostat, let alone systemic change. Oh, okay. So if there's no congruence with how I see myself versus the people that I'm leading, if that's not congruent, you got to go back to the drawing board, right? And so through the framework, we're creating, well, how do you see yourself? How do you view your leadership? What, when you are triggered, how does that show up? But then we're doing a series of interviews and asking other people, like, well, so do you see this person this way? Just answer these few questions. And then we're looking at it together. Some people are like, okay, I'm doing good. It's congruent. Some people are like, wait a minute. I want people to think I'm a financial guru. And somebody just said, this person can't do math. And then you
Mm.
create your action plan, right? Of how
Yes.
you want to show up to create congruence. And then once you've done those two steps, we look at be thyself, which is a lot more complex than you'd think because it takes confidence, it takes vulnerability,
Mhm.
it takes understanding your authorizing environment to really say, I know who I am. I know how others see me. I know how I see myself. And I'm going to show up fully to be myself in all of these settings, right? It's like, okay, I know I might have to code switch a little bit, but what's my limit to
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
code switching, to being myself? And so it's exciting to be able to present this framework to business leaders and working in cohorts and just seeing how it's really impacting them and even having those ahas like, oh man, I didn't know this about myself, but this is what I'm bringing to work and this is how it plays out. And either I want to hone it and get really good at it because that's my edge, or I gotta stop doing that stuff.
See, there is a reason why I asked you about your framework because everyone needed to hear this. There's a couple pieces I want to make. I know we have to start wrapping up soon, but um, there's a show called oh my god, it's called Criminal Minds. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
it's still on or not, but I love this show.
I used to watch it. I
Yes.
remember watching when I was on maternity leave. I was like vegging between that and Special Victims Unit. You
Was
shouldn't watch
high
that as a
school on
new
that
mom.
one?
Yeah, why new moms, postpartum, not the thing to watch.
Yes, actually, Sue and I, my wife and I, there's a few shows she was like, no, 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 we can't watch this right now. um, so the Criminal Minds show, some of you may have heard me talk about this before, but I really, really love that show. And the reason why I loved that show was because every single murderer, bad person, um, had a reason why.
Mm.
Like, they weren't just doing something to do it. There was always a reason why, some reason why they are behaving the way they are behaving. And the
Mhm.
show always showed that. And I say that because of what you're talking about, Simone. Um, the way we act in our day-to-day life isn't random at all.
No.
It is because of something. There is a why. It's because this worked in the past, or this didn't work in the past, or when I did this, people reacted this way, or I'm upset with this person because I smell the syrup on their breath, and I never got to eat syrup when I was growing up. Like, there's always a why,
Mhm.
and the more cognizant we are of why we're doing things, we then have the ability to change and push ourselves in the direction where we want to go versus the direction we're going by default. That's the first point. The second point is, oh my God, there's this exercise I do and this talk I do on leadership. And it's funny because I always ask the audience, again, it's a broader exercise, but long story short, I asked them, if people were to say, who was Simone? Like, what would they say about Simone? And people would say, oh, Simone is this, Simone is that, Simone is this, Simone is that. And that's great, wonderful. We've captured this, we wrote this down, great, wonderful. Okay, now we're going to do the exercise again, but instead, not what would people say about Simone? What would Simone want them to say about them?
Mhm.
What would you want people to say about you? And now there's an opportunity. People say, oh, wow. Like, they would say I was X, Y, and Z, but I want them to say I'm this,
Yeah.
right? There's a difference. There's a gap between how people see you versus how you want to be seen. And once you know how you want to be seen, you can start aligning your behaviors and actions with that. But you got to know where you want to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to be ready to do the work
Mm,
and dig deeply in at the point that you don't hear what you want to hear.
mhm,
You got to be, I mean, and you also have to have the discernment to weed out feedback. And so again, here I am. I'm like, what would Alex do? Now I'm talking out of both sides of my neck, right? Because it's interesting. When you're a person of color, especially when you're a woman, a Black woman, everybody feels like they can give you feedback.
mm,
Some of it's valid, some of it's not valid, but just based on us, how we got here, how we have existed in America, for some reason, everybody feels like they can give you feedback.
mm.
And so you have to have that discernment to know what feedback to take, what's valid, and to know where you just put to the side. And then, even in that same context, you have to know, okay, what work am I going to be committed to doing so that the person who I want people to think I am, I'm showing up as that person every single day.
Yes. There's a quote by Bill Clinton. He said, I really liked how he said, I take all feedback or criticism seriously, but I don't take it personally.
Hmm.
Seriously means that I will consider it, see if it has any merit. If it does, then I'll integrate it.
Hmm.
If it doesn't, then I'm tossing it to the side, right?
Yep.
But the whole point is I tell people, you shouldn't pick and choose what feedback you select based on whether you like someone or they like you or not. The worst person in the world, you could hate a particular person and they could have some great advice for you.
Right.
And you can love someone, you love being around them, and they could have some horrible advice.
Exactly.
So, like you said, you have to be able to discern between when to accept and when not to. And I think that takes that analytical thinking and the critical thinking. Then again, we keep going back to this knowing yourself, because they maybe get given some great feedback, but maybe that feedback is great, just not for you, not for
Hmm.
where you're trying to go.
Absolutely. I say I know what and who I am, and I know what and who I am not.
Mm. Madam, I know we run up against our time, and I apologize. This is me because you just kept saying all this really cool stuff. So I'd like to open the floor for you. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Well, certainly, I am all about the agreements of authentic leadership engagement. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that framework, I know that the link to my TED Talk will probably be in some of the follow-ups or in the links to the podcast, but please give it a look. I am easily accessible if you want to dig more deeply into that framework through some of my curriculum design, through the authentic agreements of leadership and development curriculum. I love making new friends. So you can always follow me on Instagram at Simone D. Ross. I'm on LinkedIn, Simone D. Ross. I'm on Facebook, Simone D. Ross. I'm that creative that just everything's my name. It is not narcissism. It is a lack of creativity. It is all Simone D. Ross.
I would say more consistency. So
Consistency.
Easily find you everywhere.
We'll say that because I'm like, why is all your companies named after you? And it's like, yeah, because I'm not a marketer. What am I? I am a driver of systemic transformational change towards workforce economic equity, not a marketer.
Get them. Look, I'm so thank you so much for being here. You know, it's funny, actually, complete side note. I just noticed my book in the background, the yellow book in the background, Relationships at Work. Those are my last 3 books I have with me. We've completely sold out. Last 4 speaking engagements I did, we sold out over 100 books in the room. It was freaking phenomenal. So I just noticed that. So I gotta get more books back there. But Miss Simone, thank you so much for everything you shared. You were amazing. Your personality, your energy is always here. If you're sorry, for people who are listening, I'm doing like my hand high up in the air. It's like super here.
And I'm blushing. I'm now full on blushing. If you're listening. See, I'm blushing and smiling big.
We got to talk through all this stuff. Hey, look, if you enjoyed today's session, you enjoyed today's talk, you know where I'm going with this. Don't just look back, reach back. Bring someone else to the table. More importantly, bring the content to them. Share the information with them. If you found anything of value and it set on you and set on your soul and making you think differently, then you need to make sure someone else hears it, because I promise you, if you found value, they will as well. And again, I'd love to join your next speaking engagement. My name is Alex Tremble, alextremble.com, and we can have some fun as we're talking about leadership and career success. As always, I encourage you to stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.